Something is happening in Cleveland, and it goes way deeper than a blown play call or another ugly loss. What we're watching looks a whole lot like a head coach quietly sabotaging the best young quarterback this franchise has stumbled into in years. And unless someone steps in fast, the Browns might waste a star before he even gets started. It didn't matter what the scoreboard eventually said, because Shadur Sanders did everything a rising franchise quarterback is supposed to do. He walked into that game against Tennessee and turned the entire field into his own personal stage. Over 300 yards in the air, 3 touchdown strikes. A clutch rushing score that shut up every critic who still thinks he's just a pocket passer. That wasn't a rookie. That wasn't a 5th-round project. That looked like a guy who'd been carrying a franchise for half a decade. And across from him was Cam Ward, the golden child, the can't miss, the guy the entire league supposedly agreed would be the next great thing. But while Ward was struggling to push the ball past 120 yards, Shadur was out there carving up the Titans like he'd memorized the script ahead of time. One quarterback looked like the future. The other looked like a scouting report that got way too much hype. And somehow, after all that, Cleveland still walked off the field with a loss. The final score said 31-29, but that number doesn't even begin to explain what really happened, because that loss didn't come from a rookie mistake or some catastrophic meltdown. It came from one decision, one moment where Kevin Stefanski showed exactly why this team keeps tripping over its own potential. For a few minutes, it didn't even matter how ugly things had looked early. The run defense was getting bullied, special teams looked half awake, and the Titans were punching Cleveland in the mouth inside their own stadium. But Shadur refused to let it die. Drive after drive, he stayed calm, stepping into throws, manipulating defenders, delivering darts with a confidence nobody expected this early in his career. And then he put together the drive, 80 yards of pure command. Quick hitters, layered throws, perfectly timed checkdowns. Whatever Tennessee rolled out, he answered it. And when they brought pressure on 2nd and goal from the 7, he hung in just long enough to drop a perfect fade into the back corner. The kind of throw that makes the crowd gasp before the receiver even lands. Touchdown. The stadium snapped back to life like someone flipped a breaker. Fans who were ready to leave were suddenly screaming. Teammates who had been dragging suddenly had energy again. For a moment, Cleveland finally felt like a real contender, powered by a quarterback who wasn't supposed to rise this fast. All they needed was the 2-point conversion. Just one more play. You've got a quarterback who's been unstoppable for the entire drive. You've got the defense on skates. You've got every ounce of momentum sitting on your sideline. And that's the exact moment when Stefanski decided to take the ball out of his quarterback's hands. Instead of letting Sanders read the defense, make a throw, or even just extend a play with his legs, Stefanski dialed up a wildcat. A direct snap to the running back. Something the team barely practices. The ball comes out awkward. The timing is off. The blocking collapses. A pile of bodies shuts the whole thing down before it even starts. No read for your quarterback. No decision. No chance. Just a free play for Tennessee and a wasted opportunity for Cleveland. But the worst part wasn't even the failure of the play. It was watching Sanders, helmet on, ready to go, standing on the sideline while someone else took the snap for the most important moment of the game. That wasn't just a bad call. It was a message. A message that said, I don't trust my quarterback. And the reason that stings for Browns fans is because this isn't new. With Stefanski, this is a pattern. Quarterbacks flash, they fight through adversity, they drag this franchise out of holes, and instead of embracing them, Stefanski nitpicks them to death. He second-guesses, he overthinks, he clamps down on the exact guys who could take his offense to the next level. And with Shadur, it feels even worse. This isn't some aging veteran trying to reinvent himself. This is a rookie, a 5th-round pick who wasn't even supposed to see the field yet. A kid the league thought would sit behind a stopgap starter for a year or two, maybe get sprinkled into packages late in the season. Instead, he steps onto the field and instantly plays like a top-tier starter. Most organizations would call that a miracle. In Cleveland, it almost feels like an inconvenience. And to see just how deep the problems go, you don't have to look any further than the opening minutes of that game. Everything that could go wrong did. The kickoff coverage was a disaster, letting Tennessee start practically in the red zone. First offensive play? Nagati. If you didn't watch the Browns game closely, you probably think Cleveland just dropped another tough one. But if you were paying attention, if you actually watched every snap, every decision, every moment where momentum hung by a thread, then you know this wasn't a normal loss. This looked like a head coach quietly sabotaging the best young quarterback this franchise has touched in years. And unless someone in that building wakes up and stops it, the Browns are about to burn through a future star before he even gets a chance to become one. Because here's the truth nobody in that locker room wants to say out loud: Shadur Sanders did everything, not some things, not enough to show promise. He did everything you would ever ask from a young quarterback thrown into chaos. He walked into that game against Tennessee looking like a fifth-round pick on paper, and the second the ball was snapped, he transformed into the most composed man on the field. Over 300 yards, 3 touchdown lasers, a cold-blooded rushing score, perfect poise under pressure. He carried Cleveland like he'd been doing this for half a decade. Meanwhile, across from him was Cam Ward, the chosen one, the protected one, the golden draft prospect who scouts raved about like he descended from the quarterback heavens. And on that field, Ward looked ordinary, barely cracking 120 yards, missing reads, drifting in the pocket, trying desperately to keep up with a rookie who wasn't supposed to be anywhere near his level. One quarterback looked like the future, the other looked like a brochure. Yet somehow Cleveland still walked off the field with the loss. The scoreboard said 31-29, but that number hides everything that actually happened. Because this game didn't fall apart because of a mistake from Sanders. It fell apart because of a decision. A single, baffling, tone-deaf, season-shaking decision from Kevin Stefanski. A decision that exposed a problem Cleveland fans have been sensing for years but never wanted to admit. The head coach doesn't trust his quarterbacks unless he handpicked them. And the wild part? It didn't start with that 2-point play. The writing was on the wall from the opening minutes. Take a step back and replay how this thing started. The kickoff coverage might as well have been drawn in crayon. Massive lanes, blown angles, and the Titans practically starting their drive inside the red zone. First offensive snap for Cleveland? Negative yards. Second? Nothing. Third? The pocket collapses like a folding chair, 2 Titans ripping through untouched and swallowing Sanders before he even sees a read develop. Then, just to hammer home how unprepared this team looked, they jump early on a punt and back themselves up inside their own 10. You couldn't script a worse start if you tried, and none of that was on Sanders. That was coaching. That was preparation. That was a team walking onto the field like they didn't realize the game had actually started. But even through that complete meltdown, Sanders kept answering. Down 7-0, he answered. Down 14-3, he answered again. Every single time the Browns needed oxygen, they didn't get it from a defensive stop. They didn't get it from special teams. They got it from number 4. Calm feet, calm eyes, crisp throws, command like he'd been doing this for years. Then came the drive. The one that changed the entire feel of the stadium. Sanders takes the field, slaps his hands together, and starts dealing like a surgeon. Quick outs, timing routes. A deep shot threaded between 2 defenders like it was pulled on a string. A check down disguised as a setup that turns into a first down burst. Coverage rotates one way, he throws the other. No panic, no hesitation. Not 1 second where he looked